The Dia Lord's Book of Greek Myths, Part 9, Asclepius, the Muses, and Orpheus. Asclepius grew up in Chiron's cave, raised with loving care, and being the son of Apollo, he soon surpassed his foster father in his knowledge of healing the sick. When he was grown, he left Chiron's cave and went down from the mountain to help the people of Greece. He became the first great physician. People flocked to him from far and near, and many who came on crutches went away skipping and dancing. His patients adored him and showered treasures upon him, and it wasn't long before they worshipped him as a god and built temples in his honor. Asclepius put beds in his temples, and they became the first hospitals. Then he went about from bed to bed, pleased to be looked upon as a god, leaning on a staff entwined with sacred serpents. The serpents knew all the secrets of the earth and often told him the causes and cures for diseases. Sometimes he put his patients to sleep with a magic draught and listened to what they muttered in their dreams. Their words often revealed to him what caused their ailments, and he could then find a cure for them. Asclepius had a wife and 7 children, and all the children followed in their father's footsteps. His sons were his assistant physicians, his daughters were his nurses. Hygienia, one of the daughters, washed and scrubbed her patients from morning to night, and it was a marvel to see how fast they regained their health. Before Hygienia's time, it was thought that soap and water would kill the sick. Asclepius grew famous, rich, and pink-faced, and as time went on, he grew so skilled in his art that he could even bring the dead back to life. The Fates became upset and complained to Zeus that they measured and clipped the threads of life in vain. Hades, too, was angry, for he being cheated out of dead souls. Apollo pointed out to Zeus how much good his son was doing for mankind, and for a while Zeus was lenient. But when Asclepius accepted gold from bringing the dead back to life, Zeus hurled a thunderbolt at him. Nothing but a small heap of ashes was left of Asclepius, the first great doctor, but his temple and his teachings of medical science remained, and the gods put his image among the stars as a constellation. Apollo was furious with Zeus for killing his son and wanted revenge. He did not dare to raise his hand against his mighty father, but he slew the Cyclopses who had given Zeus the thunderbolt. Zeus, in his turn, had to revenge the Cyclopses. He punished Apollo by making him serve for a year as a slave on earth. Apollo found a good master and suffered no hardship, but the gods on high Olympus missed him and his music. The 9 Muses most of all. The 9 Muses were daughters of Zeus and the Titaness Menamiste. Their mother's memory was as long as her beautiful hair, for she was the goddess of memory and knew all that had happened since the beginning of time. She gathered her 9 daughters around her and told them wondrous tales. She told them about the creation of the earth and the fall of the Titans, about the glorious Olympians and their rise to power, about Prometheus who stole the heavenly fire, about the sun and the stars, and most of all, about the greatness and wisdom of their father, Zeus. The 9 Muses listened to her with wide, sparkling eyes and turned her stories into poems and songs so they would never be forgotten. Apollo, the god of music, trained them and taught them to sing harmoniously together. He led the choir of Muses through the halls of Olympus and over the slopes of Mount Parnassus, and their music rang so pure and fine that even the songbirds fell silent to listen. Each of the Muses had their own special art. Calliope, the muse of heroic poetry, was the first among them. She had a mortal son named Orpheus, and he sang almost as beautifully as the Muses themselves. When he was grown, he left his mother and his 8 loving aunts and went to live in his father's kingdom of Thrace to bring joy of music to earth. His voice rang so pure and true that the fiercest warriors put down their swords, and savage beasts lay spellbound at his feet. Trees pulled up their roots and moved closer to listen, and even hard rocks rolled up to him. So the 9 Muses are Erato, the music of lyrics, Euterpe, the muse of music, Thalia, music of comedy, Melpomene, music of tragedy, Terpsichore, I can't pronounce this one, the music of dance, Urania, muse of astronomy, Clio, muse of history, Plahymnia, muse of the hymns, then Orpheus, the sun, and Calliope, muse of epics. Orpheus' music was joyful and gay, for he was in love with Eurydice, a sweet young maiden. She loved him in return. On the day of their wedding, his song swelled out, filled with the happiness of his bride, danced on light feet through the meadow. Suddenly she trod on a snake and sank to the ground, dead of its poisonous bite. Hermes gently closed her eyes and led her away to the underworld. No more songs came from Orpheus's throat, no more tunes rang out from his lyre. All joy had gone out of his life, and he had to have Eurydice back. Weeping and grieving, Orpheus wandered about searching for an entrance to Hades, and when at the end of the world he found it, he did what no living man had ever done before. He went down to the realm of the dead to beg for the return of his beloved. His music had power to move hard rocks. It might have moved the cold heart of Hades. Hope gave him back his song, and playing and singing, he walked down the dark, steep path. His silvery voice floated down the dark like a gentle summer breeze, and the magic moved the iron gates of Hades. They sprang open and let him in, and Cerberus, the three-headed watchdog, lay down at his feet and let him pass. The whole dark underworld stilled and listened to Orpheus's music as he entered the realm of the dead, singing about his great love, begging to have Eurydice back. The fluttering souls hushed. Those condemned to eternal pain stopped groaning, and their torturers, the avenging furies, the Erinyes, dropped their whips and wept tears of blood. Hades, the piteous king of the dead, sat on his black marble throne with Queen Persephone at his side. Even he was so moved by the music that tears rolled down his shallow cheeks, and cold Persephone sobbed. Her heart was so touched that she turned to her husband and begged him to let Eurydice go back to the sunny world above. Hades gave his consent, but he made one condition. Orpheus must not look at his bride before they reached the realm of the living. She would walk behind him, but if he turned and looked at her, she must return to the underworld. Overcome with joy, Orpheus started up the dark path, and as his music faded in the distance, gloom began to descend upon the underworld. The way was long, and Orpheus walked on and on. Doubt began to creep in his mind. Had Hades deceived him? Were the sounds he heard behind him really Eurydice's footstep? He had almost reached the upper world and could already see a dim light ahead when he could bear his doubt no longer. He had to turn and see if she was really there. Her sweet face, but only for an instant, for again Hermes appeared at her side. He turned her about and led her back to the dark gloom below. Faintly, Orpheus heard her whisper farewell. He had lost her forever through his lack of faith. Orpheus never again found joy on earth. He wandered into the wilderness to grieve in solitude. He sang, but now his songs were so mournful that tears trickled down the cheeks of wild beasts, and the willows wept. A band of wild nymphs stormed through the woods, shouting to Orpheus to join them. They yelled and carried on so loudly that they could not hear his silvery voice and were not touched by its magic. They wanted him to dance with them, but he had no heart for the revelry, and in a fury they threw themselves over him. They tore him to pieces and tossed his body into a river. The river stopped its gurgling to listen, for the haunting voice of Orpheus still issued forth from his dead lips as he floated down to the open sea. The Muses grieved over him. They searched the sea till they found his body on the shores of the island of Lesbos. Then they gave him a proper funeral, and at last he would rejoin his beloved Eurydice as a flittering ghost in the underworld. The Muses sang not only of the gods and the spirits sprung from Mother Earth, but also of great kings and heroes descending all from mighty Zeus. The tales of hero and brave men still ring in our ears as we listen to the Muses sing. Part 9.